Okay, so this morning we're going to talk about Maglocks, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we've seen a lot of changes that have happened over time. If you're not familiar with ASSA, ABLOY, and who we are, you can see up here just a quick reference of who we are and kind of what we do up here and all the different brands that are a part of it. In the top right corner is where Russ and Caitlin and I come from, but you see all the other brands that are out there and all the different locations and facilities, factories that we have within North America, South America, but worldwide, I think ASSA ABLOY is about 340 brands worldwide. So there's a lot of us out there. And I'm going to kind of move forward here a little bit more. Okay. And if you're not familiar with everything ASSA ABLOY does, if you can imagine any kind of an opening, it doesn't matter whether it's a gate, a fence, a door, a cabinet, doors, hardware frames, everything that goes out there, we do a lot of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over and we're going to start talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, for some of you out there, can I see a quick show of hands of those of you who grew up with Clint Eastwood out there? Someone that's got more than, let's say 20 plus years, 25 plus years in the industry, because we're the ones that have seen a lot of the changes that we're going to talk about. And we're going to get in here and we're going to talk about a lot of different things here in a little bit. But we've seen so much change with technology over the last years. The technology for electronics has changed, the technology for all the different locking hardware types and things that we've changed. And for those of you that raised your hand, when you get into that time frame of the early 90s and mid 90s, we saw a huge change in that technology when it came to hardware. And prior to that time, we had strikes and we had Maglocks and we had electrified bolts. For the most part, the electrified bolt is now gone. And then we had strikes and Maglocks that were out there. And for those of us in the early 90s, mid 90s, we saw a lot of the changes that happened, and we had to deal with the technology and how things were interpreted. We also had to deal with codes. We had to deal with interpretation of the codes. And I grew up in the Phoenix area, the Phoenix metropolitan area, of doing access control. And the city of Phoenix itself was very quick to jump on electronic locking hardware codes that we had to deal with out there. One of the big challenges that we had with the Maglock was understanding how do we interpret the codes, because the codes in that time frame were literally being written for electronic access control, strikes and Maglocks at that time. And the fire department and some of the engineers out there, they determined that, well, if you're going to put an access control in a building, I'm going to use that to my advantage to get into a building. So as we move into a building, as we have a building and the fire department wants to get in, I lose power, I have a fire, they wanted everything to unlock. So I have my first question out there to all of you out there is, are we allowed to legally back up battery a Maglock on a door today? So that's your first question out there. We're going to and we'll watch the answers, but we're going to follow up with that question a little bit later on. But we've seen a lot of changes that have happened. We've seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly installs that have happened over time. And the code officials see this as well. I see yeses and I see nos. I see I hope so. So there are a lot of things that we're going to answer that question for you, but you got to wait a little bit longer because that's going to be more towards the end. And we're going to show you where to find that answer in the code book. So the codes play an important role in what we're going to talk about. But what the AHJ sees out there are oftentimes interpretations, and they adjust to it and they figure out what we're going to do with it. In the city of Phoenix, I pulled a building permit, a fire permit, and a fire inspection permit because the fire inspector guy who's going to come out there and make sure that our electrical wiring to our Maglock was done correctly. So we've seen the changes that have happened, and those changes have come about because of issues that a lot of us have created, and not necessarily us, but the old guys out there. So the guys who raised their hands up there, we may have been a part of the problem, and that was caused by issues and interpretations of the code book, of the code as it was written. Back in the 90s, we didn't have all this functionality that we have today with computers. It was still, we're still getting the basics of computers were up and running. Not everything was loaded on the computers. For years, we drove down and walked up into the code officials, office or up to their lobby area to pick up information from them because we couldn't get it over the internet. Now we've got so many different opportunities out there, but we also have to pay attention to all the different code changes that we've looked at over time. Here's just a quick example here of something that is probably not the best application I can have. Here I've got a Maglock that is installed up at the top of the door, But you can see here, I have a sliding door. Does anybody see a problem with that? Everyone kind of see what the potential issues we're going to have with a Maglocks installed in this format. You got a sliding door. One of the first things I think about is what happens if that door becomes unhealthy. You know, it becomes unhealthy, it comes off, it gets off the rail just a hair. And all of a sudden when that door slides closed, it's hitting that maglock. We're going to create a lot of problems there. So applications are very important to us. And we're going to talk about some of the different applications. Feel free to put your input out there, things that we can probably help and answer. We're going to look at some of the different goods and bads out there. But we still have some of the scenarios that we've been doing for a long time. You know, in the 80s and the 90s, when we think about a maglock on the door, it was about a maglock and a motion detector. The 30-second timer came up because we were not wiring our systems correctly back in the 80s, even in the 90s. And a lot of that was based on, you know, it was based on understanding the codes as they're written. But we also know that, you know, depending on how we configure a door, and this is something that's been a huge learning curve, not for us, but for the architect to understand. If you, Mr. Architect, specify a all glass door out there for us, and whether you give me a header or not up there, I have very few things I can do with it. And all the way up into the early 2000s, when I put a maglock on a door, it was about a maglock and about a 30-second button. Okay, a maglock, a motion, and a 30-second button. A REX, request to exit motion detector. So I walk up to that door, the motion detector sees me. But within 5 feet of that door by the early 90s, I needed a 30-second exit button with it. But for those of you who've been around, and you always kind of talk about, I've got a door with a motion detector on the inside, I'm going to take and slide a piece of paper in there or something, which is going to unlock that door and let me in. So one of the things that I learned a long time ago from my mentor was access control, security, cameras, those are all individual layers. You know, yes, I may accidentally or inadvertently get a motion detector to release my door, but if my door opens up, I still have a door contact that's sensing that door is open and will give me an alarm state. So everything is always built in layers when we develop this. And we can see over time, I don't know how many of you have ever seen something ugly like this where somebody had to fabricate something. You know, there are a lot of options out there. How many of you have all seen something that's been fabricated and it's like, it took a whole lot more time to fabricate something out there than it did to go find the right parts and the right pieces out there, because we're going to see a lot of stuff out there. And if we do the stuff right and we use the correct parts and pieces, well, some of the stuff will last a long time. Other stuff, we're going to run into problems out there. And one of the big things a lot of people do not realize is access control systems have a requirement in the code book to be inspected annually. It's actually in the code book they have a requirement to be tested and inspected. And for the most part, that inspection may happen by that facility maintenance people. Whether they do it or not, that's something that we don't have control of because they may not call us back out there to do the inspection. But there are a lot of problems that can create it over time if these things are not maintained. And I'm guessing a lot of you out there, how many of you have been out there where a customer will not let you come out and maintain the system correctly? They say they'll deal with it themselves. And it happens and creates problems for us out there. Here I've got, you know, I got a strike plate I put up there, and we use this on an all glass door. So you can see we've got an all glass door, but somebody lost the washers. So when we do this, one of the first things we always learn about a strike plate is it's designed to be able to have a little bit of give and take and float. Well, when I put that steel washer back there, I kind of have a problem out there, and it makes it much more of a heavier impact. It's going to give me a potential for a break. So the guy on number one lost his washer, and the guys on number two found the washers. Because if I look closely on this, I think I have 8 washers on there, 8 rubber washers. Perfect. But he's going to get a lot of movement on there. This kind of gives me a pretty good indication that the installation wasn't done completely as we'd want it to be done. I'm guessing that's a solid wood core door, which I had created some problems for him maybe, but there are different things that we can do. But that to me, there again is, are there any of you guys out there that would walk away from this and leave this as as a representation of your work? I don't think there's a lot of people that want to do that. You know, we're always kind of looking at understanding basic standards, how we want to do something, but I kind of wonder where he got all the extra washers from because, you know, did he not use them somewhere else? But sometimes we have to think outside the box too and figure out how are we going to do it. When you're putting a maglock up on an opening, is it going to be secure enough to be held properly in place? Do I need to have some kind of a backer board up there? Here I've got a 2x6 that was mounted up on a header frame. They were able to get up above the T-grid ceiling, secured up to the wall, and they used that into the wall to create a secure base down below for the maglock to mount to it. And then you've got the connection there into an all glass door out there. So sometimes you have to learn to be creative as well. Sometimes you're going to be, what's your skill set for, they're again fabricating something in your shop. I'll very freely admit this is probably not going to fall down, but trying to take this back for kind of a warranty issue sometime in the future, which obviously it's not going to go back for, but there are proper ways to do this stuff so we can avoid some of the issues. And maybe it had fallen down before, so they put up the additional bracket up there to support it. Now this one here, this guy here has been around for a long time. This one here was out in an Oklahoma compound. And I know about this one because it actually came back to us. We got this in an Oklahoma compound. It had sat outside for over 20 years. And the guy said, hey, is this under warranty still? And so he sent me the picture and that, and he said, yeah, well, definitely. And when we brought it back in, because oftentimes we ask for them to return the stuff so we can take a look at it and see, man, this thing lived for a long time. And we were able to date it back to like 1998 timeframe. So it had a good long life before it came back to us. And that goes to the quality of the manufacturing. You can see over time, it took some rust beating in that, but it lasted a long time out there. And that's where some of our warranty stuff comes in. Here's another one, a creative one. I found this at an integrator. So an access control integrator had this up on their wall to their supply dock area where the technicians would come in and get their parts and pieces. And this is the end cap to an old wire spool. And they took it, they cut it to they cut it into a square. They secured it with 4 screws up on the top, but there is no support at the bottom half of that Maglocks that is out there. So in time, they're going to have problems. And using the right hardware is also important as well. We all know we have a lot of tools and a lot of screws and stuff like that in our tool bags and stuff like that. But we're oftentimes, we're looking at how do we secure something properly out there. We do have good kits that are out there to be able to actually mount some of this stuff up there. And we're going to talk about where this comes in here in just a minute, because we're going to jump into codes. And I'm not going to get too in depth into codes because we got more on the codes that we have to live with. But there are a lot of codes out there. We have to understand they come from the International Building or ICC International Code Council. There you get building codes, mechanical codes, plumbing codes, all the different codes out there. But we also have NFPA Life Safety 101 codes that we have to pay attention to. And for the most part, about 90+% of the codes from ICC and FPA codes are very similar. Now we also have to consider that these code books are adopted or are updated every 3 years. They're not always adopted by the jurisdictions. And keep in mind the jurisdictions are states, cities, counties. They're broken up into different categories out there. In some states, the state writes the code book and adopts it, or the state adopts a code book, and every jurisdiction in that state has to follow that same code. Oftentimes they're allowed to write some certain amendments here and there that are approved, but then you go into other states where the states do not dictate the codes to the cities. The cities oftentimes out there can go and adopt a newer code if they want to. You go to Texas. In the base of Texas, all the cities are, all the major cities are in 2015 or 2018 code series, while the state of Texas is still running on the 2003, 2006 code. Illinois kind of has that same issue as well, but in their charters and how their codes are written for the state, it allows the cities to write their own codes or adopt their own codes, and also the amendments that go with it. So can I get a quick show of hands from everyone out there? Is how many are confident that you know the code that is adopted in your state or in your major city you work within? If I can get a quick show of hands out there, because that's often one of the biggest questions I do ask is, are you aware of the codes that are adopted by your city, your state, federal? What are the codes that are out there? And it's good to see hands coming up out there, because they do change, they evolve. In the beginning of this year, we went through several states actually updated their codes on January 1, 2020. So those codes are changing and evolving all the time. We have to know some of the changes that happen. All the codes that we're going to look at for IC and NFPA, the 2 links that are sitting up here right now will take you into the codes for ICC and the codes for NFPA. They're both free to read. So when you go to ICC Safe, on the top right-hand corner, it says Online Codes Review. You can click into there and you can read the codes from 2000, 2003, 2006, 2009, 12, 15, 18. And by the end of the year, 2021 will also be posted out there as well. NFPA, on NFPA, I will warn you, you have to go online and register first. You have to go online and register first. They want to see who's coming and going. There's no fee, but you do have to register and create a password because they want to see who's coming and going on their website at NFPA, but it is free. And when we're talking about codes, we oftentimes think about the groups that popped up over here on the right. You know, in the doors, hardwares, frames grouping, we think about UL for doors, hardwares, and frames. ANSI, American National Standard, BHMA, and of course, Warnock Hershey. That's where we're dealing with the fire side of things. And we're not going to cover too much on the fire side today because, you know, we cover that in several of our other presentations that we do. But these are groupings that the parts and pieces that we look at, the parts and pieces that are provided by ASSA ABLOY, go through test by all these different groups and standards established by these groups that are out there. And when we're selling them out there, we've got to make sure that we follow the standards. You also follow the standards when you're buying some of the products out there, because UL 294 is one of the big ones which is coming out that we have to deal with now more and more. You know, we're talking about codes, we're talking about international building codes, international fire codes. You know, the building code is the primary area where we're looking at dealing with doors, hardwares, and frames. Chapter 10 of the building code is means of egress. We're going to find the codes dealing with the maglock in chapter 10, section 008 in 2012, or in 2015 and 2018. It's chapter 10, section 10.1.9.7 is where they start. NFPA codes also play a role in what we do, because if you're dealing with certain projects that have federal funding to them, federal projects that have federal buildings, they will oftentimes follow NFPA codes. So we have to pay attention and understand the mix between building codes and federal codes, because there's a little bit of difference between the two. And the other thing is we can oftentimes find this out by having a relationship with inspectors and with the code officials in the individual areas. I've been a member of the Fire Marshals Association for many years because it allowed me to have that good conversation with them. After years of being a part of their group, I was also invited to be an instructor for them too, where I help them understand the codes and changes, because just because someone's a code official out there does not mean that they have time to keep up with all the codes that are out there. How many of you, can I get a quick show of hands, have actually had that conversation out there with a code official who maybe doesn't quite understand the codes or the interpretation of the codes, because it happens. Yes, they're code officials and codes change for them too, but it doesn't mean they always have time to read the code. So we have to be aware of it also. And us having knowledge of the code gives us power. It allows us to ask for interpretations versus how do I do it? The codes are changing. What we did and understood in 2012 changed in 2015, changed again in 2018. Minor changes, but later on I'm going to briefly talk about delayed egress. For those of you that kind of follow what we do, we are going to do a program on delayed egress in about 3 weeks. It's going to be a 1-hour coffee forum where we're going to have open questions and answers on some of the delayed egress stuff. So I'm not going to get too in depth in it here, but understanding the codes as they change is also important. Understanding building occupancy and how something is used is critical. And when we're talking about occupancy, we're talking about the groups that come in the categories here: assemblies, business, education, factory, high hazard, institutional. When we get into some of the codes later on, you're going to see some of these letters pop up. You'll see some of the letters and some of the numbers on the right pop up. You'll see the primary group, how an area is being used, and then you'll see subgroups that are broken up into the other groupings over there. And we're working on a class that will get into more detail of this in time. So hopefully in the next month or so, 2 months, so we'll get a class up there. We'll really dive a little bit deeper into the code books, how to use the code book so that you understand how to use the code book and the key areas that are important for us as well. So understanding how a building is used, and keep in mind, some buildings may have 2 or 3 different occupancies within it. You know, we think about an assembly building. In the back, you have the manufacturing. In the front, you have the office area. You know, so you have a business up front and a manufacturing in the back. You know, different things we consider. one of the key areas that I focus on the right, the groupings that we really have to pay attention to is how many of you out there actually work with institutional groupings in that group on the right, where you're looking at rehab, foster care, detox, detox or drug or alcohol, psychiatric. Those are areas where we really, really need to pay attention to it. And, detention and daycare. Those are some areas that were really important. And those are the areas in which we're seeing a big change in codes, is when we're dealing with the institutional groupings, we're seeing big changes that are happening, especially for those of you that deal with elderly care or assisted living care, memory care facilities. Those are big places, and we're briefly going to talk on some of those later on. Okay. So we're going to briefly do a quick run through on some of the different products and things that we have out there. I'm not going to dwell on a lot of this stuff. I want more for understanding of what's out there, understanding the parts and the pieces that are out there. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to dwell and get deep into this stuff. Talking about some of the basic things and definitions that we're familiar with. And, when it comes to Maglocks are not going to go away. There's always going to be a need to have Maglocks out there. So when we do, we're thinking about places where, we think about all glass, Herculite. Herculite's a brand, I understand that, but all glass people are very common with that Herculite term. But when we look at all the different glasses out there, and we look at double glass or double storefront doors and no center mullion, the owner will not let you put in a center mullion. Those are places where we're still going to have a Maglock that we're not going to have too many options with. They don't want to spend a lot of money. And I bet you, if I ask you, how many of you out there can say you've worked with a cheap, well, let's not say cheap, but a very frugal customer where price is very much of a concern to them, and you're going to have to look at what are our different options that we have out there. So Maglocks are always going to be out there. So having a basic understanding will help out. But when we're talking about an offset strike, that is sometimes where I need to move the strike off center a little bit. I need to move that bolt. So when I'm mounting it out there, I get a bigger alignment, a better alignment with it. And you can see the actual strikes that we have that strike plate with it. Okay. You got to be nicer, Ken. I know they can be cheap, but we got to stay frugal, right? We also have split strikes, and oftentimes we use a split strike where maybe it's hard to get two different Maglocks up to split the capability of the strike, but when you do that, you also split the strength of it. But we can also do this when we're dealing with smaller applications, a lot of cabinets, where I may have two doors on a cabinet. I need to have it secure because it's got high hazard material in there or something like that. Different things that we're paying attention to. And the last one is the aerospace blind nuts. With these, you're getting 1,000 pounds of holding force with them if we're done correctly. And if we get a chance, we're going to go ahead and I'll toss up a quick link that if you're not familiar with the blind nuts up there, I think they Russ or Caitlin's got a link that'll show you, they'll take you to show you how easy it is to work with the blind nuts. There are also kits that are out there that go with it. The other thing we have out there is what we call Bondstat. And this is really important when you're dealing up there with that higher secure areas where you need something and you really need to monitor the opening. I'm always one that's going to tell you, don't use the Bondstat in place of a door contact. Remember earlier I talked about layering systems. They're layered so that we know, we've got layers there for security, layers there for access control. I never want to have any one system that's going to affect the operability of another one. So pay attention, do have the detail. Bondstat is very, very good to have, especially in a high security. I want to make sure that somebody hasn't tampered with something, somebody hasn't messed with something. One of the biggest things that I've seen, and I had a video that a gentleman showed me, was it was in a detention facility for young juveniles. And somebody had gotten had a piece of gum, and they had a little piece of metal. And they walked through a door, and they very quickly swung their hand up overhead, and they slapped the gum and the metal to the magnet so that when the door came closed, the strike plate would not hold properly. And it was really hard to tell. It had a little bit of grip on it, but it also, it reduced the overall holding force that it had out there. The other thing is paying attention to is where you're going to use a Maglock. What is the application? And how many of you out there live in a high moisture area where you get a lot of moisture, you get a lot of rain? I know, like up in the Seattle area, you can have rain for months every day. I've been to Florida where it rained cats and dogs literally for hours on end out there. But I always kind of look at when I've got a perimeter door and I'm going to put a Maglock on it, I want to make sure I've got a mag lock that's got some corrosion resistance to it because of the high amount of humidity that happens out there. This mag lock here, I was invited to take a survey of a police or a fire department firehouse that was built brand new. They built it because they had the money to build it. They stocked it. Well, a year after they built it and had it ready to go, they're now going to go in, I apologize for that, they're going to go in and occupy it, and running into what's happening with this mag lock. In the year of it sitting there, you know, Galveston, Texas, they get a lot of the rain, they get the salt and everything. And over time, this thing just deteriorated because the rain was coming down through, along through the brick up above into the frame and then getting down into the mag lock. And mag locks today that are outdoor rated have a protective coating over the back side of it to avoid some of these different issues that are out there. So you always want to pay attention to what you're kind of working with for different products out there. We have mag locks that come in all different sizes and shapes, you know, how much holding force, and that's really what it comes down to is how much holding force do you need? You know, when I'm working with a storefront opening, the average storefront opening, unless it's reinforced, will be able to be pulled out with about 600 to 700 to 800 pounds of pressure. So I don't need to put a 1,200 pound mag lock on a storefront opening, you know, unless someone's gone in and heavily reinforced it. I've worked with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on some storefront openings that are real heavily reinforced. Then if I've got to put a mag lock on it, yes, I can use a 1,200 pounder, but in a lot of situations, I'm not going to, because these come in all different shapes and sizes. The 1,200 pound mag lock, I'm going to look at what's my security level I need. You know, what am I looking at trying to hold back, hold in, hold out, whatever I'm going to do. Because sometimes I have to put this in a reverse magnet or a reverse mounting capability. But when we get up to some of these bigger ones, we get into where it comes bond stat monitoring becomes standard with it. And that's why I want to make sure the strike plate and the mag lock line up correctly, cleanly, to give me that maximum hold capability out there. The other things we have are double mag locks, where this is where I've got it. Some people may like it, some people don't like it, you know, depending on what your application. But if you're going to put a double mag lock up on a door, that's pretty heavy. You want to make sure that you got 2 technicians out to get it held up, supported correctly, cleanly, so that we do not have issues out there. You know, we've also got shear locks out there, and oftentimes we're looking at sliding types of doors. I prefer, if I'm going to use a shear lock on a sliding door, I don't mind using it on a sliding door, but the application becomes really important to me then to make sure it gets installed cleanly, it's mortised into the frame, I get proper alignment on it. But keep in mind there again, if it slides and comes out of alignment, I may not have proper holding. I would tell you right now, do not ever, never put a shear lock on a swing through door. Can I get a quick show? Anybody out there who wants to admit they put a shear lock on a swing through door out there before? And I bet you, Brian, can you tell me, was that a pain in the butt every time the door came out of alignment? Because the big thing is if that door comes out of alignment, that is not an issue with the mag lock. That is an issue with the mechanics of that door swinging cleanly. And getting the customer to understand that, Brian, is that usually the issue, getting the customer to understand your door coming out of alignment and not lining up with my magnet properly is not my issue. That's a maintenance issue with the door, the opening as a whole, not with my issue. So we're paying attention to the details out there. Replace one, exactly. Don't try a shear lock on a swing through door. The other things that we've tried to do over time is to make it a little bit easier to install a lot of the products out there by giving you mounting plates, a simple little mounting plate that weighs less than 2 pounds. Get it up there, get it aligned, get it secured before you have to put the brick up there. You know, and for those of you who've been around, we call it a brick. Now we kind of made them a little bit fancier by giving you some of the different accessories out there to make it simpler and easier to work with. You know, accessibility. You know, we're also using these in different configurations now too. You know, we're working with mag locks are going to give you some delayed egress capability. You know, so we're changing and we're evolving. You know, the mounting capability has been a big one. It makes it simpler, easier, and that in conjunction with the warranty makes these a phenomenal product to have up there if we need them. You know, and keep in mind, oftentimes these are good for retrofit applications as well, replacing the old ones with the new generation ones, make it easier to work with. There again, what size do you need? What's the weight? How much is it going to hold? Even when it comes to gates out there, you know, we do a lot of stuff with gates. And the big thing is I'm going to go back to that question again about backup power. you know, if I lose power, do I want that mag lock to unlock? And we dealt, you know, those of you who put your hands up way early in the morning, you know, this earlier, you know, we talked about, do I have to unlock my door if I lose power? Can I have backup power for these things? And this is where, you know, when we're dealing with mag locks, that backup power becomes a very important thing, because I do not want to lose that security. You know, we think about a mag lock on a door, it's part of a normally closed circuit. I've got electricity that keeps it working. Backup power is a very key thing that we keep in mind, especially as our security level increases. You know, we give you some of the different options on the accessories. You know, I've got that heavy duty gate out there. I want to make sure that I have that spring sitting back there behind it to deal with some of the impact that we're going to work with over time. That adds to the overall longevity of how something is going to work. I can pretty much guarantee out there, if you're out there on the industry side out there, nobody out there wants to return under a warranty because something is messed up. We have the wrong products and parts out there. It breaks out there. We're returning under warranty. Nobody out there likes to return under warranty, because that just starts taking away some of our money. So we have a lot of different products out there. You know, shear locks are not going to go away. There's always going to be a purpose out there for them. In one of our other classes, we talk about applications of a shear lock. A sliding door is a great application for it. There again, we always want to try and make sure and maintain the healthiness of it overall. So we've got different options that are out there. Okay? We've got heavy duty applications. The M15, the MM15, you're having 4,000 pounds of holding pressure that we have out there. You know, so there's a lot of different options out there depending on the security level in which you have. When you're dealing with 4,000 pounds of holding pressure, you really need to make sure that you have it properly mounted and secured. Otherwise, that 4,000 pounds isn't going to mean anything if those screws are run into a simple piece of drywall. You're not going to get the holding force that you want to do out there. And here we're going to, in just a minute, I'm going to come back to, and we're going to talk about the delayed egress here in just a minute as well. But we've also gone into, you know, there's a big scream out there to get something that's aesthetically more appealing. You know, we're working on a high-end application out there where we have to retrofit into access control into a building, an older building, and maybe our only option is a mag lock out there. You know, they don't want to see that brick just sitting up there now, so they're looking at aesthetic covers. This is where we've gone into incorporating into our mag locks, where you've got the capability for bond stat as a part of it. We've got the capability, we've built a REX or a motion detector into some of these, and these are different options that can be added on to them. You know, so we're trying to give you different options. The other one that's a big one that has really come along is trying to use less and less and less electricity all the time. You know, green has been around for many years now. Probably, you know, we go back 20 years and they started talking about green and lead. That's where some of these products have really made big jumps on them. You know, we're talking about earlier, you're using 700, 800, 900 milliamps of power. Now we're taking that power need down, and we're setting that power need sitting at about 300 to 400 milliamps. And when we get into the M32s, that's where you're talking about, you're getting into under 200 milliamps needed to make it work. So we're getting greener, we're making the products better all the time, and they're evolving. Now I'm going to talk just a little bit more about, just like I said, delayed egress just briefly, because we are going to do a coffee forum on delayed egress. I don't have the date handy off the top of my head, but if Caitlin wants to pop it up there, we are going to do a coffee forum style with delayed egress in just a few weeks. I believe right at the end of May we're going to do it. So it is coming up. But delayed egress is something where it's very common. It comes in bars, it comes in all kinds of different ways that we have mag locks out there. And one of the big things that has changed, and this is something that really kind of got started and moving in Denver, is where they went away from having multiple components that are out there to create that delayed egress system. You know, they want to see one single component. And in this application here, this is where we've taken our mag lock and we've created a delayed egress mag lock system. We give the capability through the bolt to give the start the initiator for the delayed egress, but they want to have one product to test when it comes to delayed egress. And you can, the good part is a lot of these, especially a mag lock leads itself very easily to incorporating delayed egress into access control, working in conjunction with access control, working in conjunction with other contacts and switches that we may have out there. So like I said, just briefly to touch on it, we're using these mag locks for delayed egress more and more and more, especially when it comes to some of the institutional facilities dealing with elderly care. Okay, so there again, that's just a quick touch on that. I know it's kind of a teaser. If you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me offline and we can answer more of those questions that are out there. Okay, so with that, we're going to kind of show you just a handful of some of the different accessories that we have up here. So the accessories, you know, they're out there to help you out in different scenarios and what you're going to have. With the SB-MXD, that's to give you initiating contact for the Maglocks. So if you want to create it for a delayed egress format, you can do that. On the right, we have the EASB, and that is for that place where you may have that real heavy contact, that real heavy impact point that's out there. You know, we want to make sure that we understand that these doors, if they're not set up correctly, your Maglock will become your stop point. And when we have the magnet becoming our stop point out there, that impact out there, you know, over time, you know, that door banging on it over and over and over again. How many of you have ever had to return out there because something didn't get set up the first time and the door comes closed and that impact to the magnet over time loosens it up? You've got to get back out there. You got to secure it. The last thing you want is a magnet coming down on somebody's head. So we have different products out there. The sec bolt up here has a shock absorber that helps it out. You may have to sometimes move that Maglock back off a little bit to remove the point off of it. Sometimes you can add in the little rubber bumpers in the frame stop that'll help to reduce some of that impact. But there again, that rubber washer we put in between there plays a big role as well to kind of cushion some of the impact that we're going to deal with over time. And we want to make sure that we're careful with what we're doing out there as we're working with the different products. And we also have kits out there that are designed to be able to help you as we work through some of the different parts and pieces. So we've got the kits available. Earlier I talked about blind nuts, but we have the tools out there, the additional screws out there. If you need to retrofit and remount something, you may need new screws because the old ones have rusted out. So there are resources available for you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of take a quick transition over to some quick things. We're going to talk about site surveys, and we're going to focus this site survey forum really on looking at getting a Maglock, selecting a Maglock. What do I need to know and understand, and what accessories do I need when I'm picking the Maglock that are going to be out there? You know, in many of the other classes, I talk about, you know, the basic things of I'm going to site survey a door. I need to talk to the customer. What is the functionality of how I want that opening to work? Is that door going to be open 24/7? Is it going to open from 7 in the morning to 5 at night, 7 in the morning to 6 at night? I've got timers working with it. A narrative that's going to help design the system, a narrative that's going to be given to the installing technician so the technician understands how it should work when he's done. Included in that, you know, we've already talked about the codes a little bit. We're going to talk more about the codes a little bit later on because the codes are a pretty big part of dealing with the Maglock out there. And the codes not only apply to the salesman, they apply to the estimator, applies to the technician, because the technician is the last person to. So he's responsible when he walks away from that door to make sure that that opening is 100% code compliant. We're not going to get into the surroundings, existing conditions too much. We'll talk briefly about it. You know, but those are things that we cover in some of the other classes that we do to be able to get through some of this stuff. So with that, we're going to talk about the site survey sheet that we provide. There are a lot of people out there that you know, we can't afford to buy that electronic format, you know, site survey form out there. So years ago, we created this and we send it out there free. It should come to you as an open Word document. You can put your name on top if you want to. It's there to help. It's there to help you when you're doing your site survey to gather the information. You can write it down. And this is something I want to see get to the technician who's doing the install, because that way you can kind of track, okay, what did I see originally? What am I seeing now? Does everything in the original install match what I'm seeing right now? Because sometimes something changes. A door was damaged, so we have to replace the door. We may not have the same hardware, different things that change. Okay, so we're going to provide this out there. But we oftentimes, when we're putting a Maglock on an opening, we also have to pay attention that I may need an accessory bracket out there. We don't need to fabricate something in our shop because there's a lot of things that already exist to be able to do that. And when I talk with technicians in our classes, when we got to do our classes out there in the field, how many of you go out there and you don't have the right parts and pieces the first time you go to the job site? And if I can see a quick show of hands, how many of you in your early years of doing this, you were sent out there to do something and you didn't have the right parts and pieces that match? So I go back to the site survey. How important is a site survey to gather the information we need? And when I would train a salesperson or somebody doing a site survey, think in the mind of the technician. What does a technician need to be able to do the installation cleanly in a timely manner? And thank you for everyone who put your hands up there, because those are things that cost us time and cost us money. We think about, we want to be successful, we want to be profitable in what we do out there, but everything goes back to the original site survey. What do I need? Do I get the right parts? Do I get the right pieces? Do I take the right tools out there to a job site? And this form here, at least it gets the person looking at the opening of, okay, I have to put a mag lock on the opening. I don't have a choice. Okay. What type of a frame am I working with? Is it wood? Is it metal? These are the things that, this is there to help you understand, what are you looking at? What type of header do I have? What am I going to mount it to? The average mag lock needs 2.5 inches of flat space up there to mount. And this is where I go back to the strike plate. I want the strike plate to match up cleanly, evenly with my magnet. If I have Bondstat on it, I'll be able to see that I've got good connectivity. If you remember earlier in the picture I showed you with the Bondstat, I circled around the 2 magnets. So with Bondstat, it's got 2 magnets in the corners, opposite corners, to tell me I get proper alignment for what we have. So we want to make sure that we identify the header. What type of header do I have? Is it aluminum? Is it wood? What type of blade stop do I need? How much distance do I need? Because we have brackets that come in different sizes and different shapes. How about my thickness? How thick do I need it to be? 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. Certain ones are designed for certain magnets, but these are all there to help you when you're out there doing your site survey, you're gathering the information you need. Again, if we don't do it correctly, we're going to have problems. We're going to have to fabricate something. We're going to have to figure out how to put something together to make it work. I don't want to see something where I've got that magnet kind of hanging by the screws out there and it gets, the door comes in contact, it's going to wiggle and shim every time it comes in. I'm going to have a problem with it over time. Make sure that mag lock is secured properly to the top up there. This, like I said, oftentimes we're never going to get called back to do an annual inspection on this stuff. But when we see that kind of stuff out there, we really need to be very firm that this stuff needs maintenance and needs to be done correctly and cleanly. And we've all known, how many of you out there have recommended to a customer, you need to get this service or you're going to have a problem, and they refuse it? It happens out there, but this thing, we've got to make sure, document. If you tell them that, document that you told them, write on a service ticket, write on something. Hey, I was out there, I told them they needed to do this. They did not do it. They did not want to get it paid. They did not want to pay for it. But I pretty much guess the majority of you out there, if you've done this for any kind of time, you understand the initial CYA, because that's what you want to be able to do out there. How many of you understand what that means? I bet you I should get a few hands up there, because we need to protect ourselves out there too. And sometimes we got to do it because we know that customer's not going to be out there to protect us over time. We're going to look at all kinds of different headers, understanding what do you have up there. These frames come in different sizes and different shapes. What type of bracket do I need? The handout that we give, download it, give it to anybody doing a site survey. If you have a choice of a mag lock, you need to identify this stuff so that when you go back and you do your estimate, you get the right drop-down brackets. Those are things that we're going to send them out to send them out with our technicians so they have it the first time, because they do come in different sizes and shapes. Sometimes you get that concrete or that wood header up there. Makes it a little more challenging, but that's where we come along with different brackets that may have a wire chamber in it. It allows you to hide your wire. You drill your hole, the wire drops down into our chamber, and it drops down into the chamber in there, and it secures it and keeps it out of sight. But there again, we can combine these different brackets to get them to work so we get proper alignment. Remember, proper alignment of a strike plate to the magnet gives us the strength that we need to be able to give that proper holding force capability out there. So, and yes, David, I do see your thing with warranty. Yes, these are things that if it's not done correctly, we pay attention to what could be under warranty and what's not under warranty. A door closer not working properly, or they have issues with the door, the opening, and that creates additional impact into that. Can that void your warranty? Yes, it can, as far as I'm concerned. So there again, we may take our service technician, the service technician going out to repair something different than an install technician. What are you looking for? What are different issues that can create the issue? Is it a part of a warranty or not a part of a warranty? Okay. And we're also going to see different scenarios in which we may have to reverse some of these things, you know, different environments out there. You know, what way does the door swing? Which way do I need to secure it? You know, sometimes we're still getting that environment where I need the magnet, you know, I need to reverse mount it. So we've got all kinds of different brackets that are out there for you. It's just understanding how to apply them correctly. So we've got the brackets. They're there to help you out as we continue through it. We want to get proper alignment, because we're going to see lots of problems out there over time. It's something that is just, you know, we're never going to get away from it, but we need to pay attention to the detail of it and what we're looking at. So you can see I think almost every one of these pictures I found, you know, and I find them as I'm out there around the country. I get a lot of people that will share these pictures with me too. When I started with ASSA ABLOY, I think I came with about 100 images of old stuff I collected. And I started to show them at my presentations. I say, hey, if you've got something to share with me, feel free to share with me. I continue to take pictures, but I think my slide deck of ugly pictures and ugly images I come across is close to about 700 images now. So if you want to share with us, you know, in today's time when I cannot travel, if you've got images that are great and they'll become a part of an educational point and you want to share with us, please feel free to do that. So we're briefly going to turn over. We're going to talk about, you know, some of the other components that we have out there that we need. A little bit, we will get into the code side of this, you know, but when we look at the different parts and pieces up here, you know, we have to understand how do we put these things together. You know, when we think about a magnet, you know, the buttons, when are these things required and what are the requirements of that? We will get into the codes of these here in a little bit. You know, a lot of us are very familiar, you know, in the early, you know, late 80s, early 90s, you know, it was a maglock and then a maglock and a motion together. So we've been used to that, you know, and over time, because of situations and issues we went from a maglock and a motion now to a 30-second timer that had to be put within 5 feet of that opening as well. A timer that is set timer. You cannot adjust that timer in the field. And I can remember a time when a code official would literally time it. He would sit there with a stopwatch and time it from the time it was pushed until the time it relocked. And if it was at 29 seconds, they said, nope, replace it. You know, so a lot of these are going to be timed out at maybe 34 seconds or something like that. But we want to try and, you know, these are things that we've learned our lessons about over time. You know, maglocks are not going to go away, but we look at different options that we have. And a lot of things, you know, changed in the late 90s when it came along where, okay, I can now use a bar to be able to provide for egress out of a door that has a maglock on it. You know, so we started coming up with these bars that had switches in them. You know, some of these will have single pole, double throws, single pole, single throw. It's basically taking that closed circuit and opening it up when I hit it. We've got touch sense bars. We've got dual sense bars that are designed for touch and collapse. You know, so it touches it and then it collapses onto a switch, breaking that closed circuit. And these are changing and evolving. And even when we go out to outdoor gates, you know, we do a lot of gates out there, you know, maybe around a swimming pool or something like that. I've got to put a maglock up on top, but maybe I put a bar across it. So if I'm leaving the pool, I got to hit that bar, but I'm also going to remember that I've got to put a collar around it as well. You know, so we can take some of these and we can put them out there in different environmentals out there. We also have touch sense paddles and touch sense plates that we can use out there to break that open or closed circuit. But some of these you also have, you know, want to keep in mind, you may need to have a conversation with your AHJ, your local authority having jurisdiction. What are they going to allow and what are they going to approve? You know, there are a lot of options out there, but depending on how an old AHJ out there, can I get a quick show of hands of how many of you guys work with that old AHJ who's had in his mindset, you know, he's not the same way for 30 years. That's his mindset. I have to do it. And with that, I'm going to ask at the same time, how many of you think I still have to tie every maglock into the fire alarm system? How many of you think I have to tie a maglock into the fire alarm system all the time still? So I got a few of you putting your hands up out there, but we're going to look at how the codes have changed and evolved. And remember earlier, I talked about the codes and I talked about amendments to the codes. So we're going to come back to that here in a little bit. We also have a lot of switches, different things that we can use to do command to release it, you know, entry into a gate, entry into single door openings and stuff like that. So we've got different systems that we can tie in conjunction with and give you a little control over some of those parts and pieces out there. There's also a lot of power out there. And For those of you that may not be familiar with power, we've done within the last 6 months, I think actually in October, life safety became a part of of what we do in the Phoenix facility under the electronic security hardware side of the industry. And that's where we're taking it. We're working with a lot of high-end power. We're dealing with systems that are connecting into high-end networks for a lot of different monitoring capabilities with networking type systems. The AQD and the AQS systems have been out there for a long time, and the BPSs, when you're dealing with that heavy end, that high end 15, 16 amp of power is where we're commonly used to finding that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff out there. All these do carry that lifetime, no questions asked warranty. I have a question about a webinar on that. That is something for the life safety side, which will probably be handled by a different group from us. But that is something I know they are working on some of the different things out there. So Adam, keep checking back with us. We may come back around to that in a few months. I know there's some stuff in workings in the back. So, okay, and with that, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up for a few minutes. Caitlin's got herself a nice little timer out there. She's going to turn her timer on for 5 minutes, and we're all going to get a quick break for a few minutes, stand up and stretch a little bit, and we'll see you back about the top of the hour. Okay, so off we're going to go. We're going to go and we're going to dive into codes, but with that, I've got a very important question to ask you right up front. So here I've got an image of a door, and you can see I have a mag lock mounted up on top of the door. If you take a little deeper, look a little bit further down, you're going to look and see that I have a bar across the door. So I've got 2 single mag locks. I have 2 bars across the door, and I have a door cord loop on here. Now I like what they did for the overall installation, with the exception of I normally want to see that door cord loop sitting up at the top of the door, but I like the fact that they, I do want to see normally a magnet or the heavy cast box for any kind of door loop you're going to be out using out there in the field. I can almost imagine that if you've ever done this out in the field and you use a plastic cap, you see the plastic will break, it'll get ripped off, or something very simple and easy. That's why we always put it up at the top of the door, run the wire, drop the wire down into the bar across the door. But my question right now to everybody is, this door as it's configured right now, do I have to tie this opening, this magnet, into the fire alarm system to be code compliant? So if you can, if you either want to say yes or no on your chat, kind of give us an idea. I'm seeing a lot of no's pop up. So you can see that question has come up over and over and over again, because it's an important question to know, because we're going to get in and we're going to talk about some of the different codes. And some of you saying yes, got a yes out there. Below that depends on HJ, and that is very much very detailed and perfect, Jeff, because if an HJ is out there and he writes an amendment to their adopted codes, so if we go back to 2009 code series, that is the codes changed. In 2009, the codes changed. So, oh, and by the way, that is an exit door. So their exit sign may be off on either side of it, down either corridor that led to that point, but it was not right in front of the door, but the exit sign being the corridor is probably leading to that corner exit door. But the HJs can adopt or can write amendments to the base code as are written, because in 2009, the code changed. In 2009, the code changed a little bit in 2012. It changed a little bit in 2015. It changed a little bit in 2018. But I'm going to show you the 2 ways we're allowed to put a mag lock on an opening now, and what the basics of the code says, because it is written in 2 different formats. So here I've got my mag locks, I got my bars. So keep in mind, we're going to add something new onto this, and we're going to talk about listed hardware. So when we talk about a mag lock on a door, I have door number 1. I have a mag lock, a motion, and a button, and a controller. So mag lock, motion, button, door number 1. That has been a standard for installation since the late 1980s, early 1990s. Started out with a mag lock and a motion, then we added the 30-second timer. In the early 1990s, that there. So all that go way back there like that, it's been out there for a long time. What changed was in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, and this started again in Denver. In Denver, they said, hey, I'm going to allow you to take a bar across the door, and if that bar is normally closed circuit and I hit that bar and it breaks part of my mag lock, that is compliant. I'll let you use that. the West Coast, we've been using that for a long time, but it made official code book in the 2009 IBC code book series. So that's where it came in, and it's been there. It hasn't changed. We've called it different things over the last couple of years, as you're going to see, but those two codes have now been in place solid for 11 years. 2009, they both matched up, and they've been the same since then. So the code books have been way back. They've been updated over time. The 2015, the 2018 allowed for both of these scenarios, and the basics of the code has not changed. We will show you the differences of the codes, though. I'm going to talk about door number 1 first, a mag lock, a motion, and a button. Okay. This is based off of what was written in 2009. In 2015, we took that 1008 to 1010, 1010.1.9.8. So minor changes in the code books from what we saw in 2009 to what changed in 2015 on the actual code number, okay? It says, egress sensor shall be provided. If I lose power, I will unlock the door. So if I sense it, I'll unlock it. If I lose power, I'll unlock the door. Been there. We can show that in drawings. And I know about the drawings because I grew up in Phoenix doing and submitting these drawings every time we put a mag lock on a door. So I got to know those guys pretty well down there. If I lose power in my circuit anywhere, I unlock the door. Very common, we've been doing that forever. I can show it in my drawings. That normally closed circuit is going to open. We had electrical engineers for the city that would look at this and make sure it was wired correctly, okay? My 30-second timer has been out there since early 1990s. I had to put that 30-second timer on there, a minimum of 30 seconds. The requirement to put a sign up has not been there for many years. I think the last city that required an actual sign above it was probably Houston and I think maybe Chicago, and they both have gone away from it. Okay, so I've got the 30-second timer. We can show that in our drawings. Oh, and by the way, fire alarm system. If there's a fire alarm system of any form in that building, it will be connected. So we had to tie it in there. And that's where the fire inspector would come out and actually do the inspection. The guy for the fire department would come in to make the connection or make sure that the wiring and the connection from the fire alarm system was there, the relay was there that would break power to my mag lock and allow it to unlock. So that was a part of the test, okay? With that, we had buildings A, B, E, and M. That sign above the door, this door shall be unlocked during business hours. It just says when I have to have that door unlocked. If it's a public building, it's unlocked. So we grew up with those different standards that are out that we've known for many years. So now we're gonna look at door number 2 and what, like I said, those of us on the West Coast have worked with this since the late 1990s. It became a part of the code in 2009. So we look at door number 2. Here I'm going to be using, in this situation, you can see a scenario of a bar across the door, but we're going to talk about the other devices as well here just in a quick minute. And I do see a quick question over here from Jeff about a Rex button. And the button can either be electronic or it can be pneumatic. My understanding is there are still a few jurisdictions, and Chicago used to require a pneumatic. They don't require a pneumatic anywhere written in the code. Chicago just updated their code book in January of this year. They do not show any amendments to require a pneumatic button anymore. Parts of Texas at one point required a pneumatic switch. I believe it is somewhere in New York where they still have a requirement for a pneumatic switch out there. And a pneumatic switch is just as capable of having a failure to it as an electronic switch is too. You know, so just being aware of some of the different things that we have out there. Tony, I do believe Texas is gone unless there's a certain city here and there that requires it. So I don't know of any actually right now there, but that, you know, certain cities can have certain amendments that I don't know, but I think most of it is there. Okay, is a redundant switch needed? The redundant switch is needed on system number 1, but not on system number 2. Now, if you're thinking of a redundant switch in this bar, I like the idea of having 2 switches in any bar that I'm going to use. I have no problem with the redundant switch, 2 switches being put in this bar at all. So, okay, so door number 1, if my circuit opens up, if I lose power, my door, my Maglocks is capable of being unlocked. Now, this is something where I'm very much a stickler. If I'm gonna put a Maglock on a door, especially a single door, I still want to have a single latch. I still want to have a center latch on it. And yes, we're going to hear the complaints from the people coming in that I've got to turn the lever, it just doesn't pull open anymore. Oh, well, if I should lose power to a mag lock, my backup battery dies, I still want that door to stay closed. I don't want it to blow open. And we just recently received a video, and we're not allowed to share it here, but they lost power of the building unlocked, and due to the wind from the outside, it literally pulled the doors open, and that door kept open for the entire night during a storm. So different things you see out there. Okay, so next I'm going to take away that bar. Let me get back over here. Okay, whoops, sorry. Operation of listed hardware directly interrupts power to the electromagnetic lock. So let's talk about that term, listed hardware. When we go out of a door, what are the primary pieces of hardware we have that let us out of a door? 1, a bar across the door. 2, a lever. 3, some type of a paddle. Those are the 3 primary types of listed hardware that we have that we use to get out of an opening: a bar, a lever, and a paddle. If I go to that opening, is the hardware there capable of being operated with one hand or ADA compliant? Bars, levers, paddles, yes. Okay. Are they considered obvious methods of operation? So if we go to a door, are they considered obvious methods of operation? So we want to, make sure that we understand basic things. But so far, we're doing pretty good on this so far. We don't have a lot of requirements on it. I just have to have a listed piece of hardware. Okay. Oh, by the way, let's say I want to put a mag lock on a door, and I've got a panic rated bar across the door. Okay. One of the first things I'm going to do is, can I put a switch in that panic rated bar and use that to break power to a mag lock I'm going to put on top of the door? If I cannot put a switch in that bar, let's say I just don't have the capability of doing it, I have to replace that bar. Well, I have to replace that bar with another panic rated bar with my switches built into it. This is to make sure that we do not degrade what has been established on that door. Is it a panic rated? Is it a panic exit? I've got 50 or more people that need to go out, or is it part of a fire rated exit? There, I need to make sure I've got fire rated hardware that's out there, so I'm going to have it available to me. Okay. So we've seen a lot of changes that have happened. So I've gone through door number 2. And if it's one thing you notice I talk about in door number 2 is I did not talk about a requirement to tie it into the fire alarm panel. Now, I think it was Jeff earlier that made comment of the AHJ. The base door number 2, as we see it, is the codes through 2012 or through 2009, 2012, 2015, and 2018. In all those codes, it does not require a connection to the fire alarm panel. However, if the AHJ wants door number 2 tied in the fire alarm panel, they have to write an amendment to it. That amendment will have to be adopted by a legislative body. So there are requirements that have to be done to change the code as it is written. So just for awareness out there, if you have questions about that, do feel free to reach out to me afterwards. But we're going to briefly talk about some of the different things, and they're a little bit different when it comes to NFPA. The basics of NFPA really are not that much different. In NFPA, they may call it something a little bit different. Like here, it's got door hardware released by an electrically locked egress lock. But when you look at that, all we're doing is talking about all the hardware on the bottom we've already talked about, bars, levers, paddles. The exact same thing, it hasn't changed. UL 294 is also found in the IBC codes. UL 294 was much more of an issue for us as manufacturers. They upgraded the standards of manufacturing for the parts and pieces that we sell out there, the things that we provide out there for you to use. So the quality of the products we're providing has been gone up higher. The time when you're going to have a problem is if you're buying stuff from offshore that does not carry a UL 294 standard with it. UL 294 became 100% effective in the United States on January 1, 2019. And probably in the last, 6 months, I've probably taken close to a dozen phone calls from either a locksmith, a security guy, an access control integrator, and says, what is UL 294? UL 294 is the standards for the hardware and the parts and pieces we provide out there for access control and security. It improved our manufacturing process more than it was the key thing it did. When you're getting stuff that comes from offshore out there, you may not get those same standards of manufacturing. They may not carry a UL certificate. I had a gentleman call me up from California. He got caught with 5 products. Excuse me, he got caught with 5 products that did not carry that standard. They called me up, what is this? And it's like, these are things, and I particularly remember because I had actually done a presentation in the California area in which we talked about those standards that are out there. So we need to pay attention to what's happening out there. So UL 294 is a big deal out there, making sure you're buying products that have that certificate. And whether it's a power supply, access control card reader, they all carry those same standards. And I believe Canada carries those same standards as well. Excuse me. So here, here's where we're talking about, the next part of the NFPA side of it. Now, the NFPA did a little bit different when it came to that motion and the button in conjunction with the Maglock. We still have that issue with the fire alarm panel. We still got to tie it in. If you look down there on number 4, it shows if there's a fire alarm system in there, we're going to tie it in. That's still in the code. But what NFPA did different, NFPA wrote in number 5 up here. And number 5 is something that's written in different parts of the IBC as well, but not a part of the Maglock code. NFPA, they wrote it into the Maglock code section. And the big thing is for those of you that still continue to work out there with buildings and operational buildings, and a lot of us did not grow up with fire alarm, but we look at the changes that have happened in society, the events that we've had in society, and we've now removed a lot of those red fire boxes from the perimeters of our doors, especially when it comes to our schools. These red fire alarm boxes have been used against us in all kinds of situations, including in hospitals where someone may well pull a fire alarm system to get past a HUGS system, maybe to carry away a baby, but not inadvertently, but carry away a baby. And we don't want to have that kind of stuff happen. So NFPA wrote in the code books out there to remove a lot of those pull stations at those doors, and they put it in this section of the code book. So that's the only real big difference between the written code of IBC and NFPA that's out there. So let's go back to my question I asked earlier in this, is what about that backup power? Are we allowed to back up power our generators that we have out there? And here is there anybody else have different thoughts on that? Has anybody changed their mind yet about whether I can have backup power for my Maglock? Have I changed anybody's mind yet? Okay, there again, we're gonna keep in mind this will be subject to AHJ. What does that authority with jurisdiction want to enforce? So in the 1990s, we went through that time frame, and some of the old guys have been out there with me. You remember that time, where we put access control, where access control is starting to really grow up there more and more. And the code official said, hey, if you've got access control and I need to get in that building, I need it to unlock and let me in if I want to go in. Okay. Well, we had to fight that battle out there, and we said, okay, so a car runs into a transformer at the end of the block. Do I want to lose power to my bank? Do I want to lose power to my high-rise building? Because in the early 1990s, we had double storefront openings. We wanted those doors open wide to let people in, no center mullion out there. So we had a Maglock at the top of the door. And we fought the battle with the city, and we had to get some of those, owners of those buildings to say, Mr. City Engineer, no, I do not want my building unlocked because I lose power. So we had to get in that point where, okay, we can now use backup batteries that are out there. Was there an issue out there? I don't hear an extra voice coming over, so I'm not sure if there's any issues out there. But we had to look at the codes and how they were changing, and we wanted to be able to back up battery or stuff. So the codes changed, the codes evolved and allowed us to now work with some of this stuff with the backup battery. And so we're going to find this backup battery information in NFPA 72, 2016 series. You're also going to find in the new one. It's also added out there in the new one. But you also have different requirements that do change with some of this stuff as well. So chapter 21.10 deals with backup power for electronically locked doors. So there again, if you go to nfpa.org, you can go into chapter 72, and chapter 72 is primarily dealing with dealing with fire alarm systems and all the different, a lot of the fire alarm systems that we're thinking about in a common building, but in 21.10, they talk about that electronically locked doors. And when I get a chance and I work with code officials, they're still the same way. They're 50-50 on whether I can back up power an access control system with a maglock, because most code officials don't even know where this section is even found at in their code books. They don't have time to read that entire NFPA 72 and all the code books that they deal with on the fire side of it. So they don't know. But for you out there, this is your guidance in NFPA 72, 21.10, and 21.10 in the 2019, where we talk about this. And it's written out there. And this is not meant to be a code class too detailed. This is just general information for a training presentation. So make sure you spend the time to get out there and work with these guys. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to talk about some of the different options. You may find some of this stuff. I'm going to talk about some of the resources that we still have for you. And then we're going to try and give ourselves, a few minutes to have an open questions back and forth. So if you have a question you want to be able to ask on here, go ahead and start, sending up the questions, working with Kate, and Caitlin and Russ are going to kind of filter through some of these, so that when we get done, hopefully with about 20 minutes or left, 25 minutes left, we can answer questions back and forth. But so go ahead and put in your questions in there, and we'll continue with that here in just a little bit. Okay, so we've seen a lot of the ugly that's out there. Understanding the codes that are a part of it are really important to us. But we want to understand those codes because those are things that we can be held legally responsible for. There are a lot of environment and a lot of uses that we're going to find for the different maglocks that we have out there. Finding a proper fit in the application is really something that we know over time. You learn over time as we work with some of the maglocks. Oftentimes I'll go back to, and I'll talk about in many of my other programs, talk about the skill set of our technicians who are doing the job. How many of you guys out there are in the, been doing this for years? You're in the management level, you're a field supervisor, whatever you are out there. But can I get a quick show of hands out there? How many of you think the skill set and understanding the skill set of your technicians is important to the work you're going to assign to them? Because knowing that is going to go a long ways to understanding how that job's going to be done. So understanding the skill set of the technicians is important. Understanding, do they know and understand their responsibilities? Do they know and understand the codes that we can be held legally responsible for out there? How about any of you, is anybody out there that's a sole proprietary? You're the owner of the business out there, if I get a quick show of hands there. When you're out there and you're that sole proprietor, you have even that much more responsibility because you want to make sure that everything is done cleanly, it's done correctly the very first time, because your margin and your survivability depends on it being done correctly all the time when you're out there. So does the TouchSense bar have 30 seconds as well? No, the TouchSense bar does not have a 30-second built into it. That would be something you could probably set up. There's enough space behind the bar. You could potentially mount a 30-second timer inside there if you wanted to. So there are different options they may want to consider. And with that TouchSense question that's out there, keep in mind about 50% of the AHJs out there do not like a TouchSense bar. So I'm usually a bigger fan of the DualSense bar. It's got dual switches that are built into it. It has the touch plus the sensors back behind it, the switch behind it. So there again, a TouchSense bar is really going to depend on the AHJ's understanding of this. Okay, let me see. I got one more quick question. I'll see if I can grab this up. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that one. The question about the delayed egress and hugs. So let's go ahead and we'll finish this one up here. So a lot of times, we're gonna look at the application. If I've got an application that I wanna put a maglock on it, we've got that traffic flow. We've got a real heavy traffic flow out there. That's a great option for a maglock out there, because we're gonna lock it during the daytime, open and close. We still want to make sure that the application is clean. We're not going to get that kind of being against hardware and everything that we're going to use out there. The longevity of the product, the that have been out there, like so they carry a lifetime, no questions asked warranty on them. A lot of those maglocks will last out there for a long time if we take care of them. Maintenance of a maglock, especially in an outdoor environment or places where we've got a lot of salt, heavy rain, heavy moisture, and that salt out there close to the ocean. You want to keep it clean, but do not take something rough and abrasive to try and clean it. You're going to take a soft cloth with soap and water and just wipe it off, because you do not. Back many years ago, the Department of Defense wanted to use Maglocks on a lot of their ships out there in the Navy, and they wanted a coating over the top of it to help prevent some of that rust corrosion. So learning how to clean it is important. We can use a lot of this stuff in conjunction with high security facilities. There again, when I'm getting into security, I'm also thinking about, okay, use a Maglock. They want to use a Maglock, but I also want to use this in conjunction with some type of a center latch. How many of you out there have seen that door that's been tweaked, even a metal door? There's a Maglock up on top or no center latch, and people are sitting there pulling on that metal door. An aluminum storefront door is even worse. You sit there, pull on it 10, 15, 20 times, you're going to see that aluminum door tweak out. A metal door is going to take a little bit longer, but in time, you're going to see that door kind of tweak out over time. We're also seeing a lot of the Maglocks. We kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about delayed egress. You know, the codes have changed significantly when it came to delayed egress. We're going to talk about delayed egress code changes in our talk, our open forum we're going to have on the 27th. You know, but we're seeing a lot of these things out there where I need to get somebody out of a building quickly. I get an alarm activation and it locks the doors, and boom, free flow out of it. A Maglock fits into that very cleanly, very easily. You know, we deal with situations where we have to deal with panic on a regular basis, or not on a regular basis, but we have had situations over time where we've had panic situation. You know, you get that preload across the latch or something like that that can create problems. That's where we're seeing codes that are dealing with how much pressure does it take to release it. With a Maglock, I do not have that issue out there. As long as we do that correctly, even with the bar across the door, if I do it correctly, that bar should still allow me to release, you not only release the Maglock, but let me pass the strike on the door. Okay. We're seeing a lot of here again. There's another example. I've got it for a delayed egress format. We're seeing more and more of this, especially when it comes to institutional. You know, institutional dealing with elderly, memory care facilities. Here I've got it on the back end of a retail store. You know, I don't want somebody walking away and stealing stuff like this. I got Maglocks up on top. That bar across that door, if I hit it, it's going to give me a nuisance alarm for 3 seconds nowadays. So we've changed the codes from 1 second to 3 seconds. You know, and in that delayed egress, we'll briefly talk about the time frames and the minor changes in the codes, but do feel free, like I said, we're not going to get too in-depth in delayed egress today, but we are using a lot of Maglocks out there with that delayed egress and how we're releasing to let people out. You know, a lot of applications dealing out there with gates. When you get up into the Maglocks out there, we're getting into things, you know, the bigger Maglocks where we're going to deal with that high power out there. You know, even out of M32, I can still get some of that stuff. I want to get some of the stuff that has that weather capability so I can withstand that weather. It's going to get the extra protective coating over the top out there. So I want to protect my product over time. Applications, applications, applications. Knowing and understanding the codes are our responsibilities. The two I find that you have up here right now, yeah, the Maglocks look good, clean. I got the motion detector sitting up above them, but neither one of them had a Maglock or had a 30-second timer on the side of it for you. Neither one of them had a 30-second timer on the side. So making sure that we understand the codes and we're responsible. You put a Maglock out there and a motion detector, you're required to put a 30-second timer. You're required to tie it into the fire alarm panel. You know, the customer has to know that. If you're a vendor out there and you do not provide fire services, you're not capable of providing that fire service, the customer has to know, hey, you need to bring in your licensed fire alarm contractor to make sure we get this connection done properly and cleanly so we're code compliant. Because if a code official comes in there, he's going to be talking to, hey, Mr. Customer, you put access control on this door, is it done code compliant? You know, and that customer is eventually going to come back to you and say, hey, we missed this on the code. This is not code compliant. And I may say, you're responsible for doing this code compliant. You're going to pay for it on your own dime. I'm not paying for you to do this because you were required as a licensed vendor to do this properly the first time. And in some jurisdictions out there, you have to pull plans and permits. You have to have an inspection out there. You have to know and understand the requirements that are happening within the jurisdiction in which you work or live. And I bet you if I asked for a show of hands, how many of you out there work in 10 or more cities? 10 or more different cities out there. And each one of those cities, just crossing a street, I can go from the 2012 code to 2015 code to 2018 code. You have to know the differences which can be enforced in each individual city. For the most part, all these cities are following the same Maglock codes, which makes it easy. But if they write an amendment, you may have to track that down and find it because they don't post it all the time. Here, understand if we're going to install it. Here I had a set of swing-through doors, Herculite swing-through doors, and they wanted to put access control on it. And one of the best things is somebody thought, I need a door stop up here. I do not want that Maglock coming back there and pounding, or I do not want the door coming back and pounding on my Maglock. They did a nice job with the protective cover sitting over the top of it, but that door stop right there in the center was really key. I want to put a soft bumper up there if I can to soften the impact up to it. I want to make sure everything closes cleanly and properly because I do not want my Maglock taking that impact of that door coming closed. So making sure we're taking care of and doing this properly and cleanly out there. And if you've done this for any time out there, I'm sure you've gone out there and you looked at some work somebody else did and you just kind of shake your head. So it happens out there, but this is where, you know, we can separate ourselves and make the difference by following some best practices. Okay. Herculite glass doors, those are still, you know, there's still a lot of them out there, but the Herculite has really changed over the time. You know, in the last 5-10 years, you know, we've had a lot of people that are listening to us saying, if you put a Herculite or all glass door out there, I don't have a lot of options, but other than put a Maglock on it, because most people are not going to pull down that Herculite glass or that all glass door out there. They're going to want us to deal with it and figure out what the best way to work with it is, you know. So, you know, a Maglock is still our best option out there for Herculite. But nowadays we're seeing, you know, we're looking at ASSA, ABLOY and some of the groups out there, they're now putting a vertical rod on that glass door now that goes up to the ceiling up above it, and it latches up into a header up there. Either a mechanical strike plate or an electric strike plate now will work with those vertical rods that we're finding on the Herculite glass doors. So they're finally listening to us over the last 4 or 5 years. And in my last year and a half out there on the road, I'm seeing a big boom right now. Glass is pretty. People like glass because they can see through it, they can display through it, whatever they want. So they still like the glass, but they're now bringing in the vertical rods that are going to latch up on top. So we have electric strike options now that are designed to work with those. Is there a bracket for that? If you've got that Herculite up there, some of them on the left-hand side, you can see we have a header up. I mean, on the right-hand side, you can see we have a header on top of the door. That makes it a whole lot easier to work with. To put a Maglock up there on the left side, we have a glass with no header on it. That's where you're going to work with a glue kit. You know, where you're going to bring in a glue kit, and I'll show you that in just a couple of minutes, where you're going to use that glue kit in conjunction with it to be able to glue the strike plate to the door. And then you can see the Maglock there is mounted up to the frame sitting up above there. Storefront, you know, storefront, yes, you're still going to see Maglocks up there. If you have a double set of storefront doors with no center mullion, and you're going to access control it, the customer does not want to put a center mullion in, your Maglock, you know, trying to put in vertical rods, surface mount vertical rods can be very difficult and challenging to do. I see a comment there about the glass and the header. You need to make sure you have additional reinforcement up above those points to make sure you're supporting any Maglock you're going to put up there. With the storefront, if I've got to put a Maglock out there, I have to do it. But I normally want to go with a Maglock with bars across the door. I can avoid a lot of issues. Remember door number 2 where I showed you a Maglock released by a bar across the door? That's where I'm going to use a door cord loop up on the high side of my door, put that up there, bring it down the frame, put it into a switch in the back of my bar, and I've got release of my Maglock. I avoid a lot of code issues when I do that. If I'm going to do it on a single door, if I get a single door out there, honestly, I'm going to go to an Adams Rate 8800 EL. If you've ever been to McDonald's before, the Adams Rate 8800 mechanical has been out there for years and years and years. If you go into many businesses out there, the Adams Rate 8800 has been out there in many business interior and exterior applications for many years. We now have a strike that will work in conjunction with that. The 8800 comes as a mechanical, or the 8800 EL comes with an electric or electrified version of it. the Adams Rite 7800 or the HES 9800 are also designed to work with the mechanical format of the 8800. So we're trying to give you lots of different options out there. Maglocks are never going to go away. You have to learn and understand how we're going to work with them, whether it's in a Herculite glass door, it's with, whether it's going to be with the, I totally just blanked on. So I'm reading a note and thinking at the same time, sorry about that. A Herculite glass door, a reverse mount glass door, whatever you've got out there, you're thinking of different things that we're going to look at. So, and even within hospitals, you know, I have a question coming up here about delayed egress, but we're still going to find those applications out there where we're going to see them in conjunction with delayed egress systems, in conjunction with secure areas within a hospital. Is there anybody out there, if I can show just a quick show of hands, how many of you work with controlled egress? So you got a couple that are popping up there. If you're not sure what controlled egress is, we find this oftentimes when we're dealing with true mental health care. This might be, you know, oftentimes we're thinking about a psychiatric ward where we really truly need to lock somebody down. We're still finding Maglocks out there, very common. These are secure areas that have very, very, very strict rules of working with that. And I always suggest do not get into controlled egress unless you have a conversation with people that are familiar with it and you know what you're getting into, because if you mess it up, you're going to have a big problem. Now, there's a question earlier that came up about delayed egress and hugs. So we're seeing changes in the codes that we're going to separate delayed egress from controlled egress. And on May 27th, when we have our coffee forum, we're going to go a little bit more into detail of this, but you want to be careful when you're getting into, you know, the tying in of, I'm guessing most of you that raise your hands for controlled egress are probably also dealing with incorporating this with hugs systems as well. And if you're not familiar with hugs is dealing with our infants, our babies, and pediatric areas where we do not want to see that you know, someone walking off with our children. So there are different rules that get into some of those areas, but very common things that we do still see out there, especially when we get into the medical fields out there. We have a long-time warranty out there. We provide, you know, that warranty is something we're very proud of. Work with your manufacturers out there. And also remember that there are checklists that are available out there to help you out when you're understanding the applications. What is the purpose of the Maglocks? How are we going to use them? You know, is there an approval process for them? What are the codes that apply to them? So we have a lot of things that are there. The gentleman I showed you back up here, his name is Brian. Brian is one of the, he's one of those beta guys for us. He goes and breaks everything that we have out there and he tells us what's wrong with them. So he likes, I like shares him with us. But the other thing we do have out there is ASSA ABLOY Academy. You're talking about 70 classes out there that are free to take online. If you take the classes and you take the test at the end of it, you get an 80% or better, you're going to get a certificate. And those are things I want my technicians to be able to go out there and do. They're free for them to use. If they want to go out there and learn and bring me the certificate, it tells me they want to learn on their own time. Those are the guys I really want to take care of. Okay. We also have two great apps out there. We have a Built app. The Built app is a third-party app, but it's designed to really show you how to put something together. Some of those guys that are out there, those older guys or older ladies who are out there, how many of you can say and agree with me at this statement? Most men do not like to read instructions when installing something. So if you agree with that, put your hand up very quickly, because this app out there is to help those people out there. The app's only about 4 years old, but if you need something that's going to guide you through how to install something step by step by step in 5, 10 to 15 second snippets, they'll guide you through how to install a lot of the products. For ASSA ABLOY right now, I think has about 95 or 96 products out there that will step through and help you install something. So if you've got an app out there for a product, use it. It will make you much more efficient. It makes you look like a genius out there sometimes, because if you follow it step by step by step, the only thing I can do to make your job easier is for me to go out there and do it for you. It's a step-by-step you can take, and you can turn the application, 3D animation turn, you can zoom in and zoom out. Thank you for Doug and Kara. It is a great app designed to help our technicians. The other app we have out there is the ASSA ABLOY Customer Support app. Earlier, I showed you a bunch of brands for ASSA ABLOY in North America. And this app out here, download the app, and when you go to your either Apple or Android, either one, go to your app store, ASSA ABLOY customer support, okay? I tell people in 10 minutes, if you can't figure out what to do with it in 10 minutes, use your app, just touch to the brand you want to go to. The Phoenix facility out here right now in Phoenix, we follow East Coast time to Hawaii time. We've got somebody there to help and support you. But you can call and talk to us, you can chat with us. And if you're out there working on something and you cannot figure it out, you can live stream video to my technicians who can help you out on the spot. That way you don't have to come back and return later on. Don't call me when you're driving away. Call me when you're there and live stream, send me a video of what you're working with. 10 minutes. Don't spend, hours. Don't spend hours trying to figure something out. If it's out there, just 10 minutes, give us a call and let us help you out. The other thing we can do a lot with is if you're using our parts and pieces. A lot of technicians we're putting them out there, we're giving them the parts, we're giving them the instructions, and we want them to read the instructions. A lot of those technicians, even though they've been doing it for 5, 10, 15 years, still may not understand a switch and a relay. So we've got a lot of tech support out there that can help you out. We've got hands-on classes. Someday when we can get back out there in the field, we've got classes that will help understand switches. Well, we've got classes that will help understand a circuit and a diagram. Russ and I have been working with this stuff for a long time. We've got classes that will help you understand a circuit, but our technicians in-house can also help you out. So there's a lot of people out there. Support available international. I'm guessing, David, yes, there is support out there. I'm not sure if you're in Canada. If you're in Canada, it makes it a whole lot easier. But if you're in some of those other countries, you just got to figure out the time zone differences. Yes, even if you're down in Mexico, yes, you just got to figure out the time zone. So you're calling in from Mexico, you should be able to get the support through the app as well. As long as you can get the app, I believe it is still out there internationally as well. So it should be there for you. But let us help you out there. There's a lot of people that want to help. So let us help you out. And with that, I'm going to kind of bring my chat over here in the center so I can see it. I've been kind of reading half a chat here for a while. So I can kind of see some of the different questions that are popping up here. But if Caitlin or Russ, if you guys want to send some questions up here. Oh, okay, let me see which ones came up top. Am I sending out links to apps? Okay, so it looks like my first question is, would a micro switch meet code if it doesn't directly cut power to a Maglock? Whatever type of switch you're going to use, the switch is going to be set up in a normally closed circuit. The activation of that switch, whether it's a bar collapsing on it, something where the lever hits a micro switch inside of a lever, yes, it should be code compliant. And I've never heard of any code official yet getting into that detail to actually see the micro switch itself. But a micro switch should work. And oftentimes, if you're thinking about a micro switch, you're talking about these can be fairly small, but it's still a switch. Normally you're going to use a single pole double throw, set up normally closed. When you turn the lever, it'll swing the switch. It'll open a closed circuit. But yes, I do not see a problem with a micro switch cutting it. If you're looking at something that you can put 2 switches in, I do recommend 2 switches. It's just redundancy. So let me see. My understanding is what that had to cut the power. Yes. Okay, so a micro switch would open a closed circuit, so that should work fine. Suggestions for all glass without upper frame header. Okay, with all glass without upper frame, you're normally going to be looking at, you're going to require a glue kit. So you want to make sure that your upper header frame, without an upper header frame, suggestions for all glass without an upper frame. You're going to have to figure out how do you get an upper frame up there, otherwise you may not have too many options up there. Because almost anything you want to put up there, it's got to have some type of stability to it. You may have to work with the customer to do a header up on side there. I was very fortunate. I had our locksmith guy had a way to do build an upper header up on top up there because he could get up into the framing a little bit. Most of those those walls are still going to be 6 to 8 inches in thickness. He had to go up there and put some additional boards up there to provide an anchoring point up there to be able to put the Maglock to it. Yeah, you may have to do some finagling out there, but you may have to find a partner who can do it for you. You may have a technician who can do it for you, but make sure you cover your time. Make sure when you get into specialty stuff like that, make sure you cover your time. Make sure you get it right and do it right the first time so you're not coming back under warranty. So I hope that answers that question. We had the G100 come up as a suggestion. Anything else to add? The G100, that is going to be a lock on an all glass door. Oftentimes the only place you're ever going to find that will be maybe on an interior conference room, where it's a smaller conference room. Oftentimes it's going to be, maybe a room that has a lot of high-end technology in it. So I've seen recording studios that might have it in it. I've seen conference rooms where they've got high-end computers, they've got video machines, all kinds of different stuff like that. That could be a suggestion as well. I do recommend you check check with your AHJs to make sure, see what their interpretation may be on using the G100 out there. Architecturally did not want a header for aesthetics. Well, if they don't want anything up there, they're going to have to make a decision. I mean, you can only do so much with it. We had a project one time where we dealt with a glass wall. So the wall was about 30 feet wide and about 30 feet high. Beautiful, beautiful front end. And they wanted to access control it. And we said, we were sitting there looking at the drawings. We were in early on the project. We were in very early. We were basically in when they're building the building. We saw the walls come up and everything, and we go, there's nothing we can do unless you're putting some type of a header around it. And what they had to do is they had to go through and resize all, excuse me, they had to go through and resize the glass around the opening so that they could provide side panels and a header up there so that we could put a maglock up on top of the door. They weren't very happy about that. And I said, you got to go back to whoever designed this. Yes, it's aesthetically, pretty, but they have to consider, if you want me to access control it, why did the architect not ask that question in the beginning? So there's a lot of different things that we want to pay attention, we want to consider out there as we do this.